Like to invite people on stage for lamp lighting ceremony. May I announce the names, please? I'd like to invite Mr. Nadeem Akhtar, CEO and founder, Shikhar Organization for Social Development. Nadeem ji. I'd like to invite Mr. Aditya Ghedyal, the Vice President of Shikhar and co-director, on the stage. I'd also like to invite our chief guest, Dr. G.K. Thapyal, who's the Vice Chancellor of Shubhat University. We'd also like to have Mr. Purna Chandra Pandey on stage for lighting the lamp. Mr. Shabi Ahmed Kidwai, Director HR. Mr. Deepak Shankar, Senior Vice President and Head CSR. Ms. Anjali Makhija, CEO. Mr. Gagandeep Bhullar, Founder, Superhuman Race. And Anam Gandhi, our coordinator. Thank you, everyone. This marks the beginning of this session. Now I'd like to invite on stage for the session Mr. Purna Chandra Pandey, the resident representative in Climate Scorecard US. With over 20 years of professional experience in a range of diverse sectors, including consulting, business, non-profit media, UN, international think tanks, he has worked in senior leadership roles both in India and internationally, with focus on strategy, program management, oversight, and financial regulations, negotiations, corporate social responsibility, business sustainability and development, cooperation issues. He also holds privilege in drafting and working on seminal reports and research works at the highest level, including at the United Nations level, besides being member on the board of businesses, non-profits, and United Nations. We welcome you, sir. Next, we'd like to also invite Deepak Shahruchi on stage. He is a communication professional with over 2 decades of rich experience in the industry. Deepak Shahruchi is heading the corporate communication and CSR functions for BSES. Under his leadership, BRPL's CSR function have evolved and positively impacted the lives of around 7 lakh beneficiaries in South and West Delhi. Moreover, adopted to the new normal on account of COVID, BRPL's CSR program lent a helping hand to those impacted by the pandemic. He is a Senior Vice President, Corporate Communication and CSR at BRPL. We welcome you, sir. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Gagandeep K. Bhullar, the founder and CEO of Superhuman Race. Gagandeep K. Bhullar is an Indian technologist and entrepreneur. She founded the Superhuman Race in 2016 with a vision to employ technology for creating good economy. She's also held various leadership positions with the Boeing company in India and North America. In 2014, she became the first locally hired employee from Asia to be selected into the company's flagship leadership program, wherein only one leader from across Boeing's office worldwide is invited to participate each year. At Boeing, Gagan's lead teams in areas as diverse as strategy, government relations, supplier management, finance, manufacturing, and engineering. Her leadership resulted in over $3 billion for Boeing in India revenues, along with over $600 million in business for Indian manufacturing and engineering companies, including the Tatas, Infosys, Wipro, etc. Gagan started her career with a defense and aerospace startup where she worked extensively with partners and collaborators in Europe and Asia, as well as the government of India, including former President APJ Abdul Kalam scientific advisory team. Gagan is passionate about making the world a better place through the use of data and the power of human kindness. In her free time, Gagan likes to read, write, travel, and mentor people in the purpose. We welcome you, Gagan. And now we talk about Ms. Anjali Makhija. I'd like to welcome her. Anjali Makhija is the Chief Operating Officer at SN Foundation with over 25 years of experience in the development sector pertaining to governance of gender equality, food security, and water security across rural India. She plays a key role in organization development, sustainable growth, people management, and networking. With professional specialization in women leadership, capacity building, she has Masters in Social Work and Bachelor's in Economic Honors from Delhi University, as a certificate of Leadership Foundation Principles from Harvard. Anjali is a member of Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, WICI, National Association of Professional Social Workers in India, and the Advisory Committee of Outreach Program of Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Anjali has held advisory positions for position papers in NCERT, ICC member at Lee Fung, Mother Dairy Fruits and Vegetable Limited, and Supergroup PLC. She was invited member of Right to Education Protection Authority Haryana 2011, member of Network Training Subcommittees at UN Global Compact in 2010. Resources for curriculum designs for newly elected representatives in the Haryana Institute of Rural Development. As a COO of Civil Foundation, Anjali ensures that women empowerment remains a cross-cutting theme across every program. She plays a key role in integrating gender equality and gender equity in all internal policies regarding program implementation and staff welfare. We welcome you, Anjali. With this, we'd like to open the session now for discussion. Our today's session is covered by TV10 on their Facebook Live and on their YouTube channel. So we'll be again meeting for a little tea break after the session ends, and I'd like to hand over the stage to our speakers, please.
Thank you very much indeed. How much time do I have? We're starting at about 10:44, 10:55. So right now nobody then comes and tries to say you heard from. No. So how much of time do you give to the panel? पूरा time लेते हैं? Yeah. You know, you have to be. Sir, तो इसके टी को skip करते हैं. कितना? कितना में की 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour 15 minutes, you know, because I try to wrap it up before that period, but nobody then would come and poke anyone of us saying, you know, ab khatam karo. You know, this is how it happens. So making things clear is always helpful. So thank you very much indeed, and it's an absolute privilege for me to be able to moderate the morning session. And I'm very happy that I can see many faces who I used to see when I used to India. COVID has not really done any harm to those who I knew. So I'm very happy, and one of the drivers for my coming here was to be able to see some good faces, happy faces, nice people, and I can't be happier than who I am now. So having said it, let me go straight away to the theme. The theme of the panel, as we know, that we have navigated through to the ninth recent CSR Summit 2021. And I have been privy to how things have evolved and amplified, both the Shikhar and also in the ecosystem. And the ninth recent CSR Summit theme cannot be more appropriate. Given the ecosystem, the times that we are in, what is happening around, and what is being done by every stakeholder, be it a startup, be it an NGO, be it a company, be it a government. So there can't be a better time than what it is now. So we will talk on gender equal ecosystem underlined by entrepreneurship and skill development. And then we could probably try and figure out how to subsume the role of the corporates. And not that only corporates, because by giving money, you do not really do everything. By giving the money, you also need to ensure that whoever the money is going to be given to are the ones who are really going to do the job there on the ground. With accountability, transparency, inclusion, fair opportunity, and seeing to it as to how do they really embed. Amplifying is one, and those are the things which are one. How do we really embed women, their entrepreneurs, their skills, because they are very differently skilled people. And if you were to really look at more similar level, and if you are a little thoughtful, you can figure out where do women stand out when you compare them to the male counterpart. And I can say it with certain degree of confidence. And therefore, it goes beyond corporates. They have money, they have resource, they know how to optimize efficiency and so on and so forth. But the moment they give their money out, the skills out to those who are really on the ground and doing it the way they need to do it, then the focus of the spotlight goes back on those people who are down on the ground and trying to do what they need to do. And when they're doing something which is gender equal kind of ecosystem and creation of it, then the whole paradigm shifts, somewhere else, which is then on the stakeholders, community, women themselves. How do we really go about making it happen? And let me say, when I landed in Berlin to head a global think tank, amongst everybody else, I had 5 heads of states from European Union. And one of the persons, he was former Chancellor of Austria, goes in law, you can check him out. We were meeting in a board meeting, and a very stout man, but very clever, very wise, and somebody who had seen everything hands-on. And since I was building that think tank from scratch, the whole idea was in 3 years' time we had to reach a certain level. One of the things was that how do we really recruit and hire people? And who do we recruit for certain roles? One of the things that he said to me was, look, I hope you're aware about how Europe works. It's not Asia, it is not Africa. It's a place where the people are more weighted to women. So you have to really try and see to it that there is no talk only. But there has to be every action when you want to have it. I'm very happy to say that when we hired a team of about 57 people, we had more than 65% of women represented not only in the Berlin office, but in Geneva, in Moscow, and in Paris. And I could really then go back and think through whatever could be achieved was achieved to a very large extent because we had women in majority on the workforce. So I can tell you that there are legitimate advantages of having women on the workforce, be it at the board level, be it in the executive roles, be feet on the ground, and therefore it becomes all the more important for the planner the morning to sort of deliberate and try and sort of expand on their knowledge, their experience, the wisdom, and you really like to be at risk like that. And therefore, without taking much time, there's a kind of a lay of the land where do we really find women for fitting into not only uh, part of the system, but part of the supply chain and across the spectrum, which only goes on to amplify the good work which is happening, and then that has to be sort of captured in terms of reporting, transparency, and trying to see to it as to how can women on the ground, with all their good skills and entrepreneurship and government policy and CSR, how could all of these things combine in a way that we could really create a better India for tomorrow? That's the kind of a broad lay of the land, and without taking much time now, I will go to Gagan. Gagan is somebody who has been a part of the corporate system, and she is now part of the startup system. And both the systems are very unique. Startups are startups because they're trying to experiment, they're clean slate, they could really try and think different. While in the corporate system, you have many times, even if you don't want, rigid systems, you can't really think quite a bit. Of course, you can do it. If you're a leader and innovator, you can still do it. The systems and the corporates are given to be rigid. They're less likely to change to a greater degree. Let me go to Gagan. Gagan, you have seen both the sides of life. You have been a part of Boeing, you have also been now running startup. Where do you really see the kind of progress being made in terms of corporates and startups? Because many a times corporate of tomorrow could be a startup of today. Where do you really see in your lives gender equal ecosystem keeping in view this entrepreneurship? How do you really see, because you're seeing both the sides of the aisle, how do you really see this very, what should I say, rebellious attribute of woman power going on to make, our, ecosystem, general ecosystem, in order to make our district a better place, our country a better place, and ultimately, how do we really see women entrepreneurship and skill development going on to make things better, because things have not really been better. There have been a lot of talks, but there have been no progress. How do you really sort of see this whole, evolution of women entrepreneurship and skill development going on to make the ecosystem driven leadership stand out and then contribute to general development and growth, both for the economy and also for our households? So what do you?
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes. Say what you want.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Pandey. Firstly, I was very inspired to hear about your experience in Berlin, same as I think most people in the audience were. So, I'm actually going to bring in both the good and the bad, because you asked me to mostly talk about the improvements that have happened. But is that all right? Yeah. Okay, so while I was at the Boeing company, we used to say that Boeing makes magic, right? We build airplanes, we put people in the air, right? So there is no technological advancement in human science that a company like Boeing does not touch in some way or form. And one of the interesting things while I was at Boeing was that the head of engineering for the main business that we led, so commercial airplanes, was in fact a woman. The CEO and president of the Boeing defense business, which is, one of the most iconic businesses of the company, even though it wasn't the biggest revenue contributors to the company, because defense also has space under it. So Boeing is the company that worked with NASA to put man on the moon, was also a woman, right? So I think that is the good news part of it, that women are now getting to a point of technical leadership roles, even in companies like Boeing, and that is fantastic. But if we look at the data, and here's where it gets really interesting. So less than 3% of the women actually go for pure STEM education that translates into roles in STEM. So these women, whether it's Leanne Craddock or whether it's somebody who's leading engineering, we are few and far between because they are part of that 3 to 10% women who have chosen STEM to begin with. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths. Even in India, we have now seen workforce participation numbers for India in great detail. They are being talked about everywhere. And, the numbers have dipped for a country like India, despite the demographic dividend over the last 10 years. And we are doing worse than our neighbors, including Pakistan and Bangladesh. So fewer women in India are participating in the workforce compared to even Pakistan and Bangladesh. But the good news again here is that more women are entering the workforce as an entry point. So where do things go wrong is sort of the question that even we started asking ourselves as we started hiring in the startup. So my company is a tech company and it's not a fashion tech or beauty tech company, thank God. Because again, I think that women get slaughtered a lot. You do a tech company and the next question is, are you selling makeup products? Is it fashion? And anyway, so, we are hiring for tech. And one of the things that we realize is that our parents are now preparing us to make these decisions, which was not happening in the past. But what happens once you enter the workforce and, you're ready for promotion after promotion after promotion? And I think by the time you get to middle management roles, and this is what we are actually experiencing in the company as well, is that a lot of the women start dropping out of the workforce. Not because they don't want to pursue career. So firstly, that is a lie. Any woman who tells you that, I'm happy now to stop working and just sit at home and take care of the kids, for the most part is not saying the entire honest truth, is what my personal experience has been. I think it is partly driven by the fact that there are just so many responsibilities. So we actually had a senior developer that we hired last year in the middle of the pandemic. She was given market competitive pay. So typically for women, pay is much lower than men. In some industries, it is worse than others. So, I had done, I think, a talk at one of the events last year where we looked at the data for mining. And you would be surprised to know that a woman who has a graduate degree in engineering makes less money in mining not only than her male counterpart. So she makes about a tenth of what her male counterpart makes. She makes less money than the woman who is a laborer on site. That is staggering in terms of a number. I mean, why would I want to get an education, complete a graduate degree in engineering and make less than a laborer on site in the same location? And this is real data. This is not something that is imaginary. So what happens when women reach to levels of even middle management, forget top management? One of the things that we started realizing, and the pandemic sort of brought it to fore, because women were now working from home, right? So they were no longer in offices where they could just disconnect for several hours from their family responsibilities. During the calls, we could hear that, kids will come to the mother to ask for food, in-laws will, ask questions. So she's constantly getting interrupted throughout the call. So clearly the unpaid labor numbers are also true. UN Women talks a lot about the whole unpaid labor that women have to put in. Apparently, it is several hours, I think 3x more of what men are expected to put in. So if the male counterpart has to walk to the grocery store to get groceries, against that, the woman has to spend 6 hours cooking those groceries, getting a meal on the table, taking care of putting it all away and all of that. So, when we start sort of boiling it down, I think one of the things that we've realized is that in order to truly empower women, we have to look at 3 aspects. The first is access, right? And access is mostly as it applies to rural women, right? Women who don't have access to education. 97% of all women that are in the workforce today are in fact in the unorganized sector. They don't have access to social benefits. They don't have access to a system that stays for them. So till they are in that role making the money, it's good. But the moment that unorganized gig comes to an end, that's the end of the story. So access is the first part. The second is opportunity. And I think in terms of opportunity, there are two things that need to be considered. One is obviously, how do we sort of encourage women to take the opportunity to be in STEM? STEM roles pay higher. They pay a lot higher than non-STEM roles. So yes, when something like the pandemic comes into fore where everybody is at home, who do you think would have to quit their job? It has to be the woman because she's making so much less. We looked at numbers even in North America. In several cases, people in STEM make 8x of what women in people in non-STEM roles do. And if men are choosing STEM and women are not choosing STEM, then they're not going to get paid as much, and their job will always be secondary. So there are two parts of opportunity. One part of opportunity is, how do we plug them into the opportunity that the globe is experiencing, right? If the opportunity that the globe is experiencing is technology, is STEM, how do we plug women into that opportunity so that they're able to derive the benefit from it? The second part of it is how do we empower them to take that opportunity, right? So, again, if you look at the data, there is an inverse correlation between labor force participation and tertiary degrees. So the more qualified you are as a woman, the fewer the chances that you're actually working somewhere. Again, it just doesn't make sense. It's all incredulous. And the last part, I think the third element that I want to talk about is equity. How do we bring everyone on a level playing field, right? So whether it is rural women, urban women, whether it is men and women, whether it is people in STEM, people in non-STEM, right? How do we sort of create equity? And I think a big part of equity is going to be political representation for women. In India, we are at about 13% as a nation. It is a terrible number. If there are only 13 out of 100 people who are women, it's not even a third, right? Who's going to be our voice? We need more women in politics. We need to groom our daughters to think that they will become the next Prime Minister of India.
Thank you very much, Vivian, and I can't agree more with you. But then let me say two things. My experience both across the continents, Asia, Africa, Europe, and mainland, China and Korea. Most of the women, regardless of where they have had their background in social science, including people like Fauci, who heads FDA in the US, had his degree in literature from Holy Cross, a French fellow. And then he came to, I'm just taking two examples, people who I have known from some close quarters. Second one is the president of AIIB, which is in Shanghai. He's somebody who did his master's in English literature. And today he heads AIIB, which is a multilateral banking system. And that also includes several women. It might be far-fetched to sort of put in a stamp on women and say that, if you are from this, then only you are from this, and so on. It is also to be considered that while we are sort of keeping rural urban kind of thing muted, the other things remaining the same as we call it in economics. Other things remain the same, the law of marginal utility works. So if you keep certain things muted, then you are better likely to see the horizon on the ground and see as to how that could be going on. And I can tell you from my very brief experience in Europe, there's a lot of talk in Europe. I was being told by a very senior political. When I began to travel and meet with women, I came to know that there are many missing elements. And they sometimes fare much worse compared to some of the women that we have out here in India and some of the countries in Africa. And this is where we tally and match with each other. To go and meet and see you in Africa and meet another one in India or somewhere in other parts of Asia, figure out the value, the culture, the integrity, the way we sort of take our, responsibility is absolutely well aligned. Versus when you really look at a woman CEO in India and try and compare her with the CEO in Europe. In Europe, if you are working, beyond 5:30, once you leave the office, you forget if you're calling somebody and that person is going to be. I'll give you some examples of the very, Let me know, and you raised a very important issue of access, equity, political participation, that is very, very important. But unless you do it, you do not really reach the goal that all of us have set, either at home or within our community or at political level. That's something which becomes very fundamental when we try and look at women from the point of view of their very differentiated and unique skills. And my wife can drive better than I can. I mean, when I sit in the wheel, I tell her, you are a better driver. And I accept it because of it. And then the whole unpaid care work, I can't agree more. And therefore, we have got to really develop that kind of an attitude. An attitude will then help us amplify the culture. We then get seeped into family, our children follow it through, and then my son will become a better husband when he gets married. My daughter will become, so we have to really try and see to it as to how do we really embed our thinking into value, both at home and also outside the home as well. Thank you so much, Gagan, for raising some of the very critical areas, and really think of gender, women, and what is their entrepreneurship skills and how their skills could be developed. Let me move to Saudi now. You're part of a very leading corporate group. You have been dealing with the workforce. This means you'll be hiring, could be training them, could be deciding on their compensation, their opportunity, on the one hand, which is more of a professional work, which many of the HR and other people do. But then there's another human level. And that human level is when you get into some CSR work, maybe doing it directly through the company and some CSR people. Or you think, look, CSR people are fine, but can I really have a more dependable partner in an NGO? How do you really then go about dealing professionally when you hire people? You must have a scenario where you have a very competent lady coming for an interview, you're really convinced, but you're not convinced about certain things. You might give office at 9:30, what do I do? If I take a person in place of a woman, I can make this man really work pretty long. No matter whether this man starts his work at 5:30, then everything is going to end. But then, we have unsettled vices somewhere. It isn't me as well. And we're all human beings, so we have to accept it. How does this woman part fair and equal opportunity, compensation, and bringing them back in case somebody has gone from training and capacity building at a professional level in the company? And what really happens when you deal with CSR and support people? And is there anything which you tell yourself when you're hiring people? And also while giving money to NGOs that look, this part or maybe certain part of work has got to be done by women. I mean, how do we really do it? And unless we make things obvious, we cannot really do it. I mean, I went for filling the petrol in my car. I asked the man who was filling the petrol in my car, and bakery, Hoga. I said, you cannot be tentative in life. And I had my kids in my mind. I told my kids, look, being tentative is fine, but being unclear is disastrous. Don't do it. So how do you really have any way in which you try and so on? Both at company level while hiring, and also when you might be doing some CSR. Do you really have some framework within which you would operate or you would like to operate, or there could be a few things that you would like to improve on after you go back to office? I'm a senior person, and I think, I can take the working. Now, CEO, that's very welcome. If you like, this question over you.
Thank you. So, lot of things that you said provoked a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I wanted to bring in. But the first thing that I would want to talk about the fact that when you're driving and when you're with your kids in the car, I also take that opportunity to teach them and to sermon them and to give them all what they call gyan. Because they are captive then. They can't just jump off and run. Otherwise, at home, when I start talking, they would move. They'll have other things to do or they'll be looking at their mobiles. I also take the opportunity, everything that is happening around, I make sure that I relate it to how we need to live and how they need to live their lives. And I know I believe only a very small portion of it, but I still try. Some of the points that I really wanted to bring in that Gagan also touched upon, the fact that women do a lot of unpaid labor. I was just a few days back reading a report by McKinsey, and they said that in the other parts of the world, the numbers are like what you said, 3x. In India, it is 10 times. So a woman in India works 10 times more than a man. And of course, most of it is unpaid. So those disparities exist everywhere. And to your point, Mr. Pandey, these disparities are not just in India. We know that it is all around the world. The gender pay equity that we are talking about, most of part of the world does not have it. So of course, it is very stark when you look at what is happening in the mines in India, maybe. But if you go to the best of the organizations in the world, and I'm talking of the best organizations in the world, they are all striving for it. We are all striving, and I'm representing global organizations. I am saying that we all striving for it, we are not yet there. So women are paid lesser than men around the world, and this is one of the priorities that the aware organizations have taken on themselves to make sure that at least because this is where it starts. If the beginning is not right, you're not paying them equally, then everything else would start showing as they grow in the organization. So it is not possible, and it would never happen to bring in this balance. Again, to quote a UNGC study, if we were to continue of course, there's a lot said about the fact that it will be a much better, much more viable economically also if we have a more gender balanced world and a gender balanced organization. But the way we are growing in this direction, the percentage of women representation that we have in Europe and America, forget India. Of course, India is also, India by the way is not that bad in at least the participation that we are seeing in some of these areas. But in the rest of the world, if we would look at it, by the time we would achieve gender parity, it will be 270 years. It will take 270 years for us to arrive at a balanced, gender balanced organization. And we are saying gender balanced organization is when the overall organization has 40%. So 40% women would be in a gender balanced organization. It will take some 200 plus years for us to arrive at. So it is an imbalanced world. It is an unfair world. It gets really amplified and aggravated when we start looking at it for India. For us, we live in a world of contrast. So you were talking of representation of women in politics. Interestingly, our voter percentage, the voter turnout that we have in India of women is equal. So in terms of making the final decision that who wins, they're equally participating. But the representation in the parliament, only in the parliament, by the way, is 13%. But if you look at and we've done some good work as a country many years back when we reserved seat in the panchayats. So in the local administration, we still have around 30-35% women on the ground. Now, I think that's a big leap that we have already taken, but it has to embed much deeper. We have to do a lot more. Now, in that background and in that context, if I bring it to the corporate, and your question to me was, how do we deal with it in corporate? I believe corporates and organizations, we are a cosmoplasm of the society. So all these biases, all these indifferences, they creep into the organization. So a lot of our energy and work for aware, agile organizations, and I'm insisting on very aware and agile organizations who are working in this direction, are conscious on this direction, goes into actually just filtering and keeping these biases out. I can tell you from the organization that I represent now, Schneider Electric, we have a lot of emphasis on this as an organization globally, and it takes, so there's a lot of efforts that we do in order to make sure, number one, that we are hiring right. So when we are hiring, we are insisting that we have at least half of the hiring that we do in the organization is women, which is taking a lot of effort. It's difficult to find. It is there is always those hidden unconscious biases. Apart from the very conscious and obvious biases, there are hidden biases. Those people who say that yes, we agree and it is fair and it is fine to get women, but they will have this question that okay, you want me to hire more women, but how would you manage when she would get married and want to relocate? How would you manage when she's on a maternity leave? How would you manage when we are an engineering organization? So in an open house with a lot of young students that we had, young employees that we had hired, I had an open house conversation, and one of the young boys stood up and said, "Sir, you say it's an equal world and you want to provide equal opportunities, but is it not unfair with me कि जब आपको Jharsuguda is a site in Odisha where you have steel plant. Jharsuguda का site पे भेजना होता है तो मुझे भेज दो, और जब आपको यहाँ पे अच्छी जो sites होती हैं NIT और उसमें जब आपको भेजना होता है तो आप you send this girl. So where is this equality? How are you saying that it's an equal world? It's an unfair world for me." And the question is very valid, and the response that I gave to him, and it was like then and there. But the point that I was trying to make was that it is not about, I'm not saying equality, I'm saying equity. And equity is that, of course, we will have to understand that they are different, and while I would want them to go and they would want to go, but the external environment does not permit as of now. So we will have to see that they still get the right equal opportunities, the right kind of opportunities, but balancing it with the realities of the times. And it is a journey that all of us will have to tread together. We'll all have to get into it. We'll have to together move in this direction, and it will take years. So we do work as an organization. To your point, we do work on educating young professionals. We do work on educating women. To your point, to ask for what they deserve and throw their hat in the ring, saying that they can also do it and they would want to do it and they would want to opt for it. We do a lot of work in making our policies which are neutral so that it provides equal opportunities, and we do a lot of work on sensitizing the leadership of the organization for their unconscious biases. So, and all I will say, and I can share a lot more and you can Google a lot more about the organization, but that's the kind of effort it is taking. It would take a lot of concerted efforts to move in this direction. It is not an easy journey. And all of us will have to do it. No one government, no one corporate, no one NGO, no one individual will have to do it. We will all have to work in this direction. Only then we'll be able to move the needle. That's what I would have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being very forthright and saying it very openly. The journey is on. We will all need to join the journey and take the journey to its logical conclusion, but both in life, at home, and wherever we are, no matter where we are. We also need to really try and put some kind of framework. This is what I believe. If we keep things open-ended, it will take however long it takes. Because we break the whole thing in a very, very different direction. And I can say, and I have nothing to hide, the collaborator for the CUHA, Entrepreneurship University, I used to then work for and many people in government in Delhi, they used to come and sit in my chamber for hours. And I'm saying it publicly, so there's nothing hidden. And that time, the chairman of Times of India was alive. And the man who sits on the top today was told in no uncertain terms, that look, everywhere, but more so in Delhi, these colleges and the schools, they have children coming in the morning, going by the afternoon, and the entire infrastructure, the school and the colleges will remain unproductive. We have a building like this hall, yet this hall is not sold by IFC for the second half of the event. It will end up making very one. The whole idea is if you have an infrastructure, how do you really make the best use? The whole idea was conveyed. Look, I mean, this is the one thing which could be very helpful. And while you do it, you also need to see to it. Like a woman, because she herself is a woman, a multi-billionaire, I got a thought for the woman, and entrepreneurship and skill development. And she said, look, one day I would like to see, at least Delhi, if not the state, to begin with, have something on the lines of the skill development, and put a lot of focus on the woman. She's no longer there. But there are people who are, making things very obvious, things are beginning to happen, and so on. So you have one person who could oftentimes, not always, end up saving an idea. And that idea could be germinated with people, right people. That idea then becomes an institution. And therefore, I could probably go back to 2007 and sit in 2021, and I was really happy because I was privy to what was happening. Now, from there on, and really I come to you. You have been leading civil society spoke NGO, which is a very robust organization, supported, funded, and led by a very unique person for whom I have a lot of respect. I have known him from the day one, if not before. The idea, the issues, his background, his being what he was when he shifted to the US. Probably the first man from this part of, Haryana side. Probably the first man who went to the US, took his PhD in agricultural science, made a name for himself, made multi-billion-dollar, created a company, sold it off, and the money that he got, he put all of that money, a very large part of that money, into what unbeknownst. So here is a man, here is his own circumstance, as a child, as a man, goes to the US, does everything his God made him to do, and he puts a lot of money into what he has been doing now. You are leading that organization, and you also have a corporate supporting your foundation, and you work on water, you work on rural governance, you work on women empowerment included. How do you really find the theme of the morning today playing out when you go to rural India? You go and talk to women who are not educated. You go and talk to women who are full of energy, enthusiasm, want to do something, but opportunities are not there. Given that kind of private ecosystem, especially when you go far down into the internet, how do you really navigate that kind of an ecosystem? And what do you really do as an NGO, as a civil society organization? Your job, amongst everything else, is also to hold government account, even if it is local, provincial, sub-national government. But you also get the money from the corporates to plow that money back. To see that, women and men and all of them can get together and work for the betterment of the society. So how do you really navigate the money from the corporates? And secondly, the kind of fractured or fragile ecosystem that you have on the ground, so that women folks, I know these women in Haryana are doing better than anybody, but then the ecosystem is missing. Or if it is not missing, then it is very fragile. There's a male domination of the women there. Equal opportunity is provided, and it's not there at all. Not educated, you cannot demand the rights. How do you really navigate the money from the corporate in the one hand? On the second hand, how do you really navigate through very fragile, complicated, and fractured ecosystems that you find present on the ground? And what steps do you really take to see to it, along with the men, women, and not really men?
Thank you so much, Puran. And I just wanted to share with you a small incident. Last month, there was a new woman chartered accountant who joined our organization, and we were traveling together. And my driver was also, three of us were traveling. So I said, "Why are you late?" She says, "I had so much of work. I had to look after the kids. I had to do cooking and this. So my driver says, "अच्छा मैम, मैं तो घर में सारा खाना बना के आया हूँ." She said, "आपने कहाँ खाना बनाया होगा? आदमी तो कोई खाना बनाता नहीं, सारा काम तो महिलाओं को ही करना पड़ता है." So I was really taken aback. Here is this woman who's professionally so qualified. She's a chartered accountant. I said, "What does your husband do?" She says, "He's from IIM." I said, "And what does he do?" "Well, he works. He works from home, and I have to come to office, but I manage all the household work." So she has never been exposed to the development sector. And as she has been with the organization for some time now, and this is a new world which has opened for her. So in our organization, as Puran had mentioned about Dr. Sehgal, we have gender equity and we have a gender policy. I started this policy about 7 years back in the organization, both in terms of programs as well as the culture and the policies in the organization, which has to be pro-women. So when we talk about issues, and I think one of the major things which we talk about is addressing gender stereotypes. What I've just spoken about this, very professionally qualified person in my organization, and we have those discussions off track and on track. We have gender training, and what does it mean to change the roles which define roles which a woman is expected to perform in a society. And Puran, you were asking about our CSR partners, and we emphasize on working with women, having separate platforms to start with, because you need to have a safe environment for women in rural areas to work. And many of the partners, they are very, very proactive and they are very supportive of the work. But then there are other partners who would say, "We would just like to work on agriculture. It doesn't matter to us whether women are recognized as farmers or they don't come to the, we just want to increase the productivity of crops. We are not bothered whether, women come to the platforms. There was another organization I visited just a few days back, and I was telling them that we work with adolescent girls specifically. And she says, it's not our mandate. It can be anybody. It can be boys and girls. And, so this was a woman, heading a CSR in one of the big organizations. Then we had a conversation about the roles that women have to play in specific gender equity norms, which we have to bring in our overall work. So we constantly work with CSR partners, and most of them are very open about it. But it's just that the sensitization is not there. And I think it has to be at every level, be it at the board, be it at the mid-level, what Karan was talking about. So many women, they lead jobs at the mid-level. Then we don't have women at the technical level. We work a lot on water harvesting. So we need civil engineers, we need agronomists, we need geologists. Where are those women who are in this technical work? And so it is very, very important. I had met a friend of mine. She was brilliant when she was with me in school. She was from IIT. She passed out from IIT. I said, what are you doing now? She says, I left my job because I had 2 kids and I had to look after the children. So I said, then why did you take up IIT? You just spoiled the seat. So, so it's so important that, we need to break those gender stereotypes. And we really have to work on women leadership. And coming to your question about rural India, yes, rural is a very different scenario altogether. Anyone was talking about representation of women in panchayats. There is 33% representation. In some states, it's 50% representation. But representation alone doesn't, imply meaningful participation. वो आ तो जाएंगी पंचायत पे, but उनकी जो सारे decisions हैं या तो उनके आदमी लेंगे या उनके बेटे लेंगे. So all the decision making, forums, the decisions are taken up by men. So we do a lot of work in the foundation how to mobilize women and form this kind of women collectives. When women come together and the collective has a lot of strength, it gives women a lot of strength, and there is a safe platform where they can, work. And we have specific focused activities on digital training, on agriculture. We have para-agricultural women workers, we have technicians, we have women representing our village development committees. So a lot of proactive strategies have to be built to mobilize women. When I was in this organization 20 years back, we used to work in an area called Mewat. And whenever I used to go to that village, in all our meetings, not a single woman would come. कभी आएंगी ही नहीं. And I told my seniors, I had just joined the organization, I was not at the senior level. I said, these women are not coming. वो तो आएंगी ही नहीं, उनको तो छोड़ दो. Let us not waste time. We were building a water harvesting structure, and I wanted women to get more. And water is an area which is so close to women's heart. They deal with water day and night. Day and night, they fetch water. They work with cattle. They fetch water for their families. And when it comes to decision making, when it comes to planning, तो महिलाएं तो आएंगी नहीं, उनको छोड़ दो. So that was the mindset of the men. So I always tell these women whenever I'm in my office and when I am working with these rural women, I say what is so important is to work on the mindset of men. It is so important. It's not that they're just not sensitized because it's not their fault. I would say, but it's just that they have never had this kind of a platform. I'm talking especially among the rural men. And I have had, sessions with all male meetings. And I know it's very funny. Sometimes I talk to them and some of the men become very shy. They cover their head. So we've had those kind of experiences. And I always tell them that, it's not that... It's just that that platform, that conversation has been missing in their lives. So we need to talk about equity, we need to talk about gender specific programs. So gender stereotypes, women leadership, I think is very, very important at every level. Because there are some issues which women understand. I talk to women in the rural areas and I tell them, you are a panchayat member, आप सरपंच हैं, but अगर आप ग्राम सभा में नहीं आएंगी, आप सरपंच में decisions नहीं लेंगी, then all the activities of women related to women, they will not come in the village planning. You know, वो जो मेल सरपंच है यहाँ पे गेट बना दीजिए, यहाँ पे वो बना दीजिए, वॉल बना दीजिए. So you know, when it comes to toilet, नहीं toilet की तो जरूरत है नहीं, क्योंकि I mean, they go and it's a problem of women. The toilets is a major problem. Where do they go? It impacts the reproductive health of women. So we need to have separate talks with the women, separate talks with the men, and how to bring both the genders together gradually. आज हमारे गांव में, we have big gatherings of women collectives. We have men and women coming together. We work in 10 states now, not only in Haryana. Different states have different dynamics of women, caste, so we have to be very sensitive to them. We work with corporates. I'm on the ICC committee of a few corporates, so I work on gender training, especially for their staff, their team. So as Inward was saying, it's a journey. It will take time, but we have to start. And even in our organization, I think we promote gender equal environment. And yeah, your example was very valid. एक आदमी कहे कि मैं तो शाम को इतनी दूर देर तक काम करता हूँ और महिलाओं को आप 5 बजे घर भेज देते हैं just because they have work at home. But you have to have a dialogue. You have to have an engagement. How can a woman's family support her in the household work? And what kind of safe environment if a woman is traveling in the night? How can we ensure that there has to be a safe place for her so that there is a safe stay environment? So a lot of you have to go 2 steps forward to ensure a lot of things. You have to have proactive policies. And last thing I would say, I'm very happy with the youth, the adolescents. I think it's very, very important to work with the young boys and girls. I see there is a total transformation when you talk about gender issues with them. I think they are our bright future, and we have a lot of things to look forward to.
Thank you, Anjali, and very helpful. Which means that the ecosystem is not only about training, physical development, entrepreneurship. We're really talking about an ecosystem which is a general ecosystem, which will probably offer some kind of driving force, if not anything else, the moment to be able to move forward, have the voices amplified, be heard, and be heard by those who really matter, because you cannot really go out and sing a song or sing some prayer, and like what happens in the rural areas. Like when NGOs will go, there'll be a prayer in the morning. The woman will come, sing the prayer, go back, never to be seen again. How do we really amplify the voice, amplify the participation, have programs being rolled out by corporates through CSR and otherwise, which would be philanthropy or anything else, like Dr. Suri said. He was one individual man who put all of his money into philanthropy. I mean, to change something that you feel very strongly about, one man or one person could be good enough to do it. At least to sort of start moving the needle, and then people come around and try and amplify it. So thank you very much, Anjali. And now coming to you, Deepak. Reliance, until about a few years back, was basically by and large, primarily, more essentially, brick and mortar kind of company. Everything happened in the backyard, and people were not really seeing what was happening and how it was happening, what are the kind of difficulties which company was facing, how did the company, innovate and led the whole thing from the front, unless it became a consumer or customer facing company. And that could be very disruptive. When you are doing everything at home, and after 2 years you go out and find the world very bad. You can't see eye to eye, you can't align with people who can value elsewhere. So one part is this. Now, it is one of the largest Indian, or I could really say one of the largest Indian international company, global conglomerate, going out and facing people, be it, services, be it anything else. This is the one part. How did companies sort of try to manage such a great transformation from being a brick and mortar to a consumer or customer facing company? And when you do it, many things change, value, recruitment, hiring. In face of consumers, you don't really face them only in big cities, Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai. You might be facing somebody back in the north, or somebody in Manipuri in UP, or talking to somebody who does not understand anything but has money to buy your service. How do you really, as a company, deal with that kind of scenario? One. And secondly, while you deal with that kind of scenario, there is a needle on women empowerment, entrepreneurship, skilling women so that you have a more diverse workforce. And once you have diversity in the workforce, even men could be brought around to where they belong. And I think the whole beauty of every woman in any organization across the board is that they really name and say men. And they also try and build a sense of balance wherever it is, at home, beyond home, in the workplace, marketplace, and community. So I think women's role as a whole, therefore, becomes very critical. What is your, and please add to it, overall mindset that we all suffer with? No matter I went to IT, LSE, Harvard, but when I come back to my community and society and their homes, I suffer with the same mentality, which I might have seen as a child. And that is why I said when I opened, I want my son to be a better husband when he gets married. I want my daughter to be a better, wife compared to my wife when she gets married tomorrow. So how do you really change this whole ethos and, I say stereotype, if we all suffer with it, I suffer with it, and I'm accepting it. And I went to some of the finest institutions in India and abroad. How do you really tackle that kind of complex ecosystem issue when it comes to dealing with women and seeing to it how to really amplify their voice, help them, support them, really go out of the way. Some of the companies have been doing it without naming them. What would be your narrative about it? Well, that's a larger task which I'm, giving you to, but I think that will be very helpful.
Before Deepak speaks, I just thought I'll remind you to tell these guys to edit the portion where you said you want your daughter to be a better wife than your wife. The rest is okay, but they are saying that they'll play it today. So
my wife understands the scenario and she says that let's make our daughter better educated, let her go all out and travel. And I gave my daughter some money and I told her that you go and travel on your own. When she came back, I can tell you, the power of travel, the power of giving independence to your children can be transformative. And my daughter, not just my daughter, I'm raising her. So both husband and wife, together they want our son to be better, my daughter to be better than her. And how could they two together later on? They will grow and adult and women. We want them to be the agent of change. So it's really not mine.
So you will have to define what you mean by spectrum.
Thanks, Mr. Pandey. Sir, I work for BSCS and my responses will be confined with my experiences that I have in BSCS. See, we are a power distribution company. And power distribution company largely the workforce is of engineers and diploma-holders. Of course, there are other departments like finance, IT, compounds, CSR, non-engineers are employed. So traditionally, India has produced more number of boys engineers than girl engineers, and more number of girl doctors than boy doctors. So since we are an engineering company, so we have more number of boy doctors. But that was when 2000, that was in 2002. If we look at the situation today, internally, substantial changes have happened. And there are many of our colleagues who are heading departments. And, they are lady colleagues, women colleagues. Sizable number of people, vice president, senior vice president, additional vice president, who are women. And that changes has taken place in the last 5-6 years, and in an engineering company. So things have really changed. But of course, we have a long way to go. Coming to the food field and to CSR, since it is Shikhar's 9th CSR summit, in CSR we do work in different areas. Education is one of them, and today my responses will be education because this event is related to that. So in education, we have 4 verticals. One is literacy campaign that we do. Second is, of course, Shikhar. Third category is vocational training centers. And fourth is, of course, financial literacy. My experience in the last 4 to 5 years, in all these centers combined together, we have more than 60% girls and women participants and students who come to our centers. And it's not only participants and their attendance. Even in terms of what we call attitude towards learning, they have a stronger learning inclination than their counterparts. I don't know whether it's a welcome development or not, but it's the reality that we have faced. Internally, I'm saying, I'm not talking pan India. These are our personal experiences. When pandemic hit us, we wanted to use our vocational training students to prepare masks and sanitary napkins because a lot of families they lost their incomes. So we wanted to distribute in our labs. So we distributed in thousands in coordination with the local administration. I'm happy to share that almost 75% of our students who got their education almost free from our centers, the people who came forward were girls and women. So what I'm saying is, as far as education, when education was being imparted, there was no discrimination from our side. But when it comes to contribution, probably because they feel more for the society, or the issues that we came up with, preparing masks and sanitary napkins, they were closer to their hearts, or probably because of their attitude towards solving a problem that is inherent in them. They came forward, and thanks to them that we were able to do it very successfully. We are still doing it. So what I'm saying, and many of these women are in their early 30s and even 40s, who for some reason did not get opportunity to get education in their early lives, but they have got opportunity now, and they are far more active than their male or boy counterparts. So what we see is change has already happened. When it comes in our data parameters, that is going to take some time. Coming to the larger perspective that Sabi has also shared, and Anjali has also shared, 33% of the reservations were done decades back by our father parents, no more. But changes are happening today. Similarly, the policy interventions that are happening today, changes will happen in few decades later. If not decades later, we wish that it happens in few years. And the sarpanches or mukhyas who were girls or women, their fathers taking decisions for themselves, that is passé. No, not anymore. This is the second or third generation of sarpanches, lady sarpanches that we are seeing today. They take their own decisions. And not in 100% of the cases, but since I have some rural connected today, maybe not happening in the same degree in all the states, but in certain states, they are very formidable as a group, and even the chief ministers and the ministers spoke of them directly when it comes to their assembly elections. And I'll also give two examples. We had incumbent governments coming back to power both in Delhi and in Bihar. I'm giving because I have some information about these elections and how they won it. There are 100 reasons for any success. But two of the main reasons that they returned to power despite huge odds against them. Bihar, the incumbent CM was facing huge incumbency, anti-incumbency because it was 15 years. And in 15 years, generation changes. His seats got reduced, but he still won. And there are many reasons, political, caste, blah, blah, blah. But two of the solid reasons are that he provided cycles to girl students, class 9 and class 10. These students were voters this time. They are adults now, and they voted in block for the incumbency. And second, commercial, of course, aspects of it are debatable, but he banned liquor in Bihar. And women folks voted in block to the incumbent CM. We can debate whether this decision was right, wrong, commercial losses and all this is right also. But women voted for this man in block again for the second time. And whatever seats he got, these two groups played a major role. Second, I come to the center. Of course, center won. Yeah, 15 years, 15 years. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Despite huge challenges, the gas connections, the toilets, the 1 rupee sanitary napkins that were distributed played a huge role. And there are enough data points to prove that ladies voted in block for the prime minister in certain regions. I'm not saying all over India. Despite their husbands and a lot of the family not being in favor. So paradigm shift has already happened. Whether it is noticed at the fore, it will take a few more years. But as a block or as a group, they have become very, very formidable. If you travel in the summer and November, if you travel countryside or you go to Himachal, Punjab, in the fields you will see more women working on the field than men. And it's 20 years earlier also they used to work 100 years back also. But now they have started. They go to mandis. They may not be going to mandi all alone, but they go to mandis as well. So things have changed, but yes, changes that have taken in unorganized spaces are different. Changes that we are talking about, data points, only 14% of countries are female. These changes are in the structured changes in the organized mind. Here, the approaches has to be different. As far as the rural area is concerned and unorganized sector is concerned, changes have already happened. But yes, before it comes to equality or equity, it will take a few years. But we cannot decide for them anymore. They decide for themselves. And that change has already happened. Degree varies from region to region. And even in Delhi, I have experienced and I have worked with people who are not very blessed financially, but they take decisions for themselves. not 100% of it. But then 100% of me also don't think it's useful. So it varies from individual to individual. But I work in Najafgarh very actively, Jafarpur, Mundka, Nagori, JJ clusters of Vikaspuri, Okla, women and girls have started taking decisions for themselves. And that's a welcome development.
Thank you very much, Deepak. I mean, this was a very helpful narrative. And how do we all where we are, regardless of where we are somewhere, and therefore it is our duty, and we are duty now, to see to it that we amplify what is happening. Good things. How really wise to women, especially those who are not privileged ones, and that also becomes a matter of consideration and try and build ecosystem approach, whereby things begin to move better in the right direction. I mean, that is the kind of broad value which I personally seek to derive out of this 1 hour kind of a conversation or dialogue that we have had. And it has been pretty enriching to hear that almost all of you are unanimous in your approach. When we were to really go beyond the obvious, then we cannot and should not look only at women empowerment from the point of view of skilling, entrepreneurship, but it has got to do more with building ethos, breaking the stereotypes, giving voice to the woman, and see to it that wherever we are, the three things only, or three spaces only, which we can probably imagine. The one is the workplace, wherever we go to work, we interact with our colleagues, we have people, policies, and systems. Then we have the marketplace. So whatever we do at the workplace goes out. If we produce a bicycle, it goes out in the market to be sold, and somebody goes to buy it. So our efforts are then translated from workplace to marketplace, and then workplace and marketplace together constitute the community. And Gagan was referring to, you know, women being seen from a holistic point of view. And I completely agree with it, but we also need to see to it that whatever we have been trying to do or whatever we have been doing, we have got to see to it that parts of whatever we are trying to do percolates down to the workplace, marketplace, and community. And this is what CSR is. This is what empowering our women is, and this is how it will really trigger the needle slightly harder to be moving in the right direction. And though it is off the track, but coming to you, when my son and my daughter, when they went for the PTM, made it point both husband and wife. You know, they were doing pretty well academically. And I always made it a point to ask the teacher, how is my son doing with his interaction in the classroom, the teacher, with colleagues, other students? Is he or she respectful to teachers? I mean, those were the kind of values that I was trying to capture, both in my daughter and son early on. And not to really make anything obvious, maybe, how do I really see to it that they are better on values over and above their studies. There are many educated illiterates roaming around. I've got nothing to do with those educated illiterates. I have got to do more with somebody who is slightly less educated, but higher on values, integrity, openness, good behavior. Those are kind of soft things in life. When you are equated with somebody at equal mark, these things could really go on to differentiate. That's what I was trying to say, meaning by referring to better, nothing else. How do you really become a better person over and above your MBA from Harvard? Well, there are many MBAs from Harvard, my friends, zero. But there are some who did not go to Harvard, and I can tell you, people for it. This is what I was trying to refer to by saying better. I hope Lady is there, and we are, and I'm very sorry that I could not really give any time to. Madam, just give us 5 minutes. Since somebody says it is woman ecosystem, may I go to the woman first and then?
Okay, yes, welcome.
Please direct it to one of us.
I think you should be clapped for that.
Madam, your point is very well taken. We took a holistic definition, trans, non-trans, binary, into the gender. I mean, certain things in life should not be made obvious. You know, if I, opened the can of the bottle and gave it to Gagan, it meant hardly anything. So then, you saw respect to people who are sitting by. So we included that into the definition of gender without making it real. But your point is very good. Thank you. Yeah.
So what's your name? Okay, hi Purnima. So Purnima, I think that, in these forums, so two things, right? One is when we talk about gender these days, we are mostly trying to talk about it from the lens of SDG 5. And, the percentage of women in the world at this point in time exceeds by a significant degree the percentage of people who identify themselves as transgenders, right? And I think that is one of the reasons, and it's a very mainstream issue, right? So all of these issues are mainstream because of the large population of women around the world who are facing these challenges, rural, urban, educated, not educated, regardless, right? And I think that sort of is one of the reasons, and I do think that the conversation about transgenders and how do we mainstream their issues is a separate conversation which requires a forum, independent forum.
Your point, madam, is very well taken. Very well taken.
So my question to all of the panelists, a lot of things have been talked about the Gram Panchayat, equity, you also talked, Madam, we also talked. Now I can give you one example.
Please, very briefly, sir.
One example is of district Barmer in Rajasthan. And one example is of Barabanki, 30 kilometers from now, 90% population are Muslim. I was assigned the duty by the government of India to monitor the scheme of the rural development. Mahatma Gandhi Employment Guarantee Scheme takes a photo. And 30% of job is for women. See, it was up to me. If I give the bogus report to the government, I can see no lady. So I asked those ladies, आपका घूंघट ऊपर नहीं आएगा मुझे क्या मैंने आपकी फोटो कंपेयर कर लिया कि वाकई आप उनका नाम और फोटो मैं उठा नहीं करूंगा आप बिलीव नहीं करेंगे कि आधे घंटे के बाद मुखिया के साथ मीटिंग हुई जो लेडी अपने घर वाले के सामने घूंघट निकालती है उनका मैं 2 साल के बाद किया कि वो आज वहां रेवोल्यूशन हुई है औरतों ने घूंघट उतारा सेम थिंग हैपेंड विद बाराबंकी मुसलमान इलाका एक सरपंच लेडी मुसलमान उनको मेरे को रिपोर्ट देना था सरपंच को हमारी योजनाओं का कितना पता है एक तो मैं ठीक है अपना बोगस रिपोर्ट दी उसका देवर आया हुआ था मैंने कहा नथिंग डूइंग वहां पर मीटिंग उन्होंने की और वो लेडी सरपंच आई वहां पर ये मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि अगर जो डिसीजन मेकर है लीडर है अगर अपनी ड्यूटी ऑनेस्टली करें तो ये इक्विटी और ये जो सारी चीजें हो सकती हैं, पॉसिबल नहीं है, उनको चांस दिया जाए तो कर सकती है।
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
My last question.
Okay.
Please allow me to.
Last question, and then we
From my end.
offline, you know.
It's rather a concern, not a question to respected panel members, where we are actually talking about women empowerment, equity, where Priyanka Gandhi has recently launched "मैं लड़की हूँ, मैं लड़ सकती हूँ." From this statement to the recent Bhavana attack, where we are seeing that man cannot take denial, and acid attacks are still happening. It's our yesterday news. I'm just talking about recent development. How would we see ourselves as sensitized to these issues?
We are not.
We are
So
not. We are not actually.
Let's not frame that.
On paper or on reality.
Absolutely, that's the point that we were trying to make.
It's a crime.
It's a crime.
It's a crime.
Even when there are lots of movies that are being made.
No other issue. It's a
Still
crime.
these are happening.
What is the culprit?
Sections, legal
It is a
system.
crime, but simultaneously it shows our insensitivity to the issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. मैं लड़की हूँ, मैं लड़ सकती हूँ just by giving a statement. So I
know
don't.
other things, and
Yeah, please.
especially because you're bringing up a celebrity like Priyanka Gandhi are talking about this. And even in the panel, we noticed this, right? So we need to stop discussing anecdotal stories of success. There is an Indira Nooyi, there are successful people, but they are quite far different. And in order to do it, the second thing that we need to do is we need to be honest and truthful about the data. And there are two questions. So we talked about 35% representation of women at the panchayat level, but we didn't talk about the fact that less than 10% of women in India actually have land tenancy. अगर उनके पास land ही नहीं है rural environment में, सरपंच बना के कर क्या लेंगे? Can they break away from their families? Can they actually do something independently? So I think that we need to look at the data and we need to not celebrate too early. With the anecdotes, we celebrate too early.
And I think one thing is we have to start at a very young age. You know, we have to talk about gender, we have to talk with young youth, and I said youth, basically, male youth and women both. So it has to be a conversation at the home. It has to start at an early age. I mean, कितना पढ़ के हार्वर्ड से भी जैसे मैंने कहा IIM पढ़ करके ठीक है. But what about these conversations right at your family level? It has to start at a young age.
I think it's a long journey, and we are not going to achieve anything in a short span of time. The journey has become 75 years back, and we have achieved a lot as a country. I think I'll slightly differ with Poonam that let us celebrate every small success. That will inspire us to do better and go to the next milestone. It's very important because if you are looking at a utopian situation in 75 years, hence none of us will be alive to achieve that. So even if two of the guys or the girls go to NEET from Shikhar, let us celebrate that as well. Because that will inspire 4 others to go to NEET and Z and to do policy. Similarly, on this issue, every success, every sarpanch, every MLA, every MP, every girl CEO, every girl who goes to, say, NDA, 11 of them are getting permanent commissions 75 years after independence. Everything needs to be celebrated. Otherwise, in a negative mode, it will be less of achievements. There is enough data, enough science, enough articles to prove that if we are in a positive mode, we achieve things faster. But yes, it's not a grand celebration like situation right now. We have a long way to go. But let us start celebrating the good things that we are doing. And definitely that time will also come.
Thank you, Deepak, on that positive note. Let me say that while we must celebrate every small incremental, at least now, successes which are women, including girls, achievable now, without forgetting that within the world, which is an alternative world, and we also live in a post-truth world, where everything is mixed, and we need therefore develop a pretty positive frame of mind and start contributing to wherever we are in a positive way. Thank you very much indeed, and I would like to thank all my panelists for being, so supportive in terms of keeping the time. We are not really overstepped in any way. We have started at about 11 o'clock, so we are in time. And thank you, each one of you in the audience, for being so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like you to stay please for 1 minute. We'll have felicitation. I'd like to thank our panelists for such a wonderful discussion. Please give them a huge round of applause. I'd like to conclude the session with the words of Emma Watson. She says, "It is time that we all see gender as a spectrum instead of the two sets of opposing ideas." And with these words, I'd like to call upon Mr. Aditya Vidyalia to please hand over, felicitate our panelists with bouquet and the mentor. I'd also like to call upon Mr. Ashwin Kumar to do the honors. So we start with Mr. Sabiena. Sabiena, thank you, sir. Thank you. Next, Mr. Deepak Shahruchi. Ms. Anjali Mahija. Ms. Gagandeep Sundar. And of course, our session chair, Mr. Puran Chandra. So you're going for a group photograph of all the panelists. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful session. Now we'd like to break into a small tea break for 5 minutes after we resume the second session.